Breaking news here in the Middle East, Israel launching attacks against two Iran-backed groups, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and those pictures you're seeing there, the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Tonight, Hezbollah reeling from yet another blow to its leadership, confirming the death of a senior member of its group following the Israeli strikes in Beirut on Friday that killed its leader for more than 3 decades, Hassan Nasrallah. CNN's Nick Robertson, he's been tracking all these developments and had the opportunity today to travel with the Israeli Air Force all the way to Yemen, where these strikes occurred. What did you find along that mission?
Yeah, this was a IDF embed on board one of their air-to-air refuel tanker aircraft that was supporting the F-35s that were taking part in that mission in Hudaydah in Yemen. We didn't have our own cameraman aboard, but of course saw the operation, saw them multiple times that the F-35s came up to refuel, and that was part of the message of this mission. Not just the strike on the ground, but to signal that, as the Prime Minister has said, and as the Army Chief of Staff said later today after the strike, that Israel can reach out to its enemies. And on board that aircraft, this is an aging airframe. It's 50, 60 years old almost. It's an old commercial airliner. It's fitted out with these huge fuel tanks. But it's necessary for the F-35s to arrive on their target fully fueled. And that's what it means to be able to project your force in the modern military environment.
And that's key, because that message, I imagine, is being sent equally to the Houthis in Yemen and to Iran as well.
Absolutely. And the reason that it's been done now is because the Houthis have been targeting central Israel. Over the last 2 weeks, there have been 3 ballistic missile strikes very close to this area, Tel Aviv. And according to the Houthis, yesterday they were targeting Ben Gurion Airport while the Prime Minister had just landed. So, as you rightly say, this isn't just a message to the Houthis, but it's one for Iran to read as well. And incidentally, one of the Houthi missiles was fired towards Tel Aviv the day after one of the Hezbollah commanders, who had been a Hezbollah envoy to the Houthis in Yemen, helping train them with missiles. The day after he was killed, that was another time they fired a missile here. So it's the message.
If they were to get the airport, which is just behind us a few miles in that direction, that would be an enormous blow to Israel and to Tel Aviv. Nick Robertson, thanks so much. Well, we're joined now as President Biden says he'll be speaking with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Biden telling reporters today an all-out war must be avoided. The U.S. sees the possibility of a limited ground incursion of Israel into Lebanon in the coming days.
Can an all-out war in the Middle East be avoided? It has to be. We really have to avoid it. And we've already taken precautions relative to our embassies and personnel who want to leave. But we're not there yet, but we're working like hell with the French and many others to see the real world. Thank you.
For a look at Iran's role in all this and how they're watching, joining me now is Kareem Sadjapur. He's a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Kareem, thanks so much for joining us this Sunday evening. I want to ask you about what Nick and I were just discussing there. Israel's signaling to Iran in the midst of all this, as many in this region are measuring how Iran might respond to the killing of Nasrallah, given its close relationship with Hezbollah. Is Iran reading these messages about Israel's ability to strike far and wide as a deterring factor to any retaliation it might carry out?
They have to be, Jim. Over the last several months, Israel has struck several devastating blows against Iran and its proxies, in particular Hezbollah. So Iran has to be taking Israel's resolve very seriously right now. You know, if we take a step back, the goal of Iran and its axis of resistance is basically twofold. They want to replace Israel with Palestine, and they want to try to defeat the US-led world order, evict America from the Middle East. And Hassan Nasrallah, in my view, after Ayatollah Khamenei, the leader of Iran, was the most important member of this axis of resistance. And his absence is going to be hugely felt for the Iranians.
Yeah. You know, that axis, as you describe it, is often described as a ring of fire right now. And of course, you have Hamas in Gaza depleted, though not destroyed, but certainly depleted. Hezbollah certainly depleted given the strikes on its leadership as well as many of its weapon storage facilities. And now, as you look at the images of fire that we're showing there from the strike on the Houthis in Yemen, has Israel effectively muted that threat from the ring of fire?
Jim, I think it's too early to say. You and I have been watching the Middle East for a long time, and it's always wrong to prematurely celebrate the defeat of an adversary. I remember very vividly when George W. Bush, shortly after the Iraq War, announced mission accomplished. But I think what is very clear here is that in terms of its military and its intelligence, Israel is far more sophisticated than its adversaries in the axis of resistance. And I think this is in part because you have in Iran an 85-year-old supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. He's not left the country since 1989. And you kind of compare Iran and its proxies. They're all operating out of failing states. Not a lot of resources, not a lot of technological sophistication. And they have certainly in the last weeks and months shown themselves to be outmatched by Israel. And for Israel, this has been a useful diversion from the carnage which we've all witnessed in Gaza.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Iran in that there have been some signals from Iran in recent days, and similar to what we've heard in recent weeks, something of a message of an intent to de-escalate or at least avoid escalating. And I wonder, in your read, is that because Tehran does not want to escalate, or that it believes if it would or would attempt to, that it would lose, that it would get pushed back, that it would get attacked, much like it's seen its proxies in Lebanon and in Yemen get attacked by Israel?
I think, Jim, it's more of the latter. I'm always reminded of a wonderful quote from Hannah Arendt, the great German-American philosopher. She said, every revolutionary, the day after the revolution, becomes a conservative because suddenly you have a lot you can lose that you want to preserve. And likewise, the Iranian regime has a lot to lose. Ayatollah Khamenei, as I mentioned, he's the longest serving autocrat in the world. You don't get to be the longest serving autocrat in the world if you're suicidal. And so his bind right now is that if he doesn't show any reaction, he's going to lose face, both in the eyes of his proxies and in the eyes of his people. And every dictator wants to be feared. But if he reacts too strongly, he could lose his head. So he's in a real bind right now. And I think they're probably in a shell shock trying to figure out right now how they should react. And the last thing I'll say, Jim, is that Iran and its proxies are very effective when there's an element of surprise, like the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel. When everyone is paying attention and on high alert, they're much less effective.
Yeah. And listen, think two quite prominent leaders, Nasrallah in Lebanon of Hezbollah and Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas in Tehran, no less, both eliminated by Israel just in the last several weeks. So you can imagine the fear perhaps among some in Tehran. Karim Sadjapur,
absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining.